All right, let's see how this goes. So most of you know me already, but for those that don't, my name is Allison. I am an independent educational consultant, and I spend my days helping families through the college admissions process. Usually I start sophomore, junior year. Sometimes I have kids jump in as late seniors, and that's fine. But this presentation is mostly for seniors and their parents. And we're going to go through the financial aid award letters. Some of you would have already received them. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. I have one that I'm showing that's actually from like a current student. And basically, I just want to make sure that you guys, when you get these letters in, that you understand what you're looking at so you can make the best financial decision for you and your family when it comes time to make your deposit May 1st. So I am not a financial planner. It's too late for any of you to hide assets to try to get a better expected family contribution. So if you have younger children that are going to go through the process, definitely go talk to a financial planner if you have a lot of assets. But I will not give you any kind of recommendations about that. So tonight we're going to talk about the different kinds of financial aid. We're going to go over a few sample award letters. And I just want to reiterate the fact that I want you guys to be focusing on campus fit and affordability. What I don't want is any of you to jeopardize your retirement and your financial future trying to make it work. You know, if your student has a bill that's like 60 grand a year, but you don't have that money saved to make that happen. So as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, financial aid awards can start trickling in at any point. All schools do everything differently, which is one of the benefits of working with a consultant is because we kind of help you track that stuff. But your kids should be watching their student portals. I work with students and we have meetings just to do this because they're like, oh, I don't have a student portal. But then as we're going through their email, they had a student portal invite weeks ago that they never set up. So definitely make sure your kids are checking their student portals, check their emails, check their spam folders. Sometimes FAFSA emails you looking for FAFSA verification. So they're looking for a certain tax form or they need you to fill something out, and that will hold up your award. There we go. In addition to FAFSA verification, some schools require the CSS profile. There's about 400 private schools across the US that use that. It's through the College Board, the same company that does the SAT. So the CSS profile, some schools will email you requiring certain IDOC uploads. So those forms are on the school financial aid website, but you actually upload them to the CSS profile site. You don't email them to the school. So if you get any correspondence from the FAFSA or from one of the CSS profile schools, read the directions really carefully and just upload it exactly how they say, and then follow up with financial aid to make sure they received whatever it is that they were looking for. Let's see. Okay, so total cost of attendance. On your financial aid award or on the school website, you will see the total cost of attendance. That is important, especially when you're first looking at schools, but what I'm concerned about is the direct cost. Like, what is that bill going to be? What's that bottom line that you're going to have to pay when the bill comes? So your direct costs are tuition, fees, room and board, with your indirect costs, which will vary depending on where your son or daughter goes to school. And the indirect costs are the books. You know, there's a lot of schools that I see now have like open source textbooks, so the cost can be relatively low. Some, you know, they're insane amounts of money. So you just kind of like those you have to plan for, but you don't really know that budget, and it's not something you pay directly to the school with your tuition bill. Personal expenses, who's going to pay for pizza Friday night, how are they going to pay for their laundry, and then travel. If your student's going to school across the country, you're going to want to budget for, okay, how many times a year can I fly junior back and forth? You know, are they spending Thanksgiving at school but coming home for Christmas break? But those are indirect costs. They don't show up in the bill. So I don't worry about that, at least not right now. So we're going to concern ourselves tonight with what are you paying directly to the school? The different types of aid. There's money you don't pay back. That will be in the form of scholarships. When you get an acceptance letter and they get the chancellor's scholarship, that's merit aid. That's money that, as long as they meet certain stipulations like GPA and credits, they'll keep that money for 4 years. Pell Grant, that's federal aid, and then state aid. So like Massachusetts, we have the Mass Grant. A lot of the state aid is based on income. So you may not see that on your award. Then there's money that you need to pay back. So that's the federal loans, the student loans, they'll get a Stafford, which is $5,500. So if you get an award letter and you filled out the FAFSA, but the Stafford loan is not on there, to me, that's a red flag that you should be following up with financial aid to see why that didn't happen. Most likely they asked for something that they're just not getting. And then parent loans, which we'll go into a little bit later, but those are federal loans that the parent can take out to help fund the total cost of education. And then there's like self-help money. And this also shows up on award letters, but it's money you have to pay, not money you have to pay back, but it's money you earn. It doesn't come off your tuition bill, but like work study, you're eligible to earn that money over the course of the semester. It shows up on your award letter, but that money doesn't automatically come off your bill. So you still have to kind of pay that up front. Okay, so the different types of loans. Here, I want you to really pay attention to who the borrower is, okay? For the federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, the borrower is the student. That loan is in their name. Parent plus loans and private loans are in parents' names. Like that is your liability, your responsibility. There are some private loans that the student can be on with a parent cosigner. It is very hard to find a private loan that a student can just take out on their own unless they're a little entrepreneur and they, have this income source. That most likely is not going to happen. They will get the Stafford loan that if they fill out the FAFSA, that will be in their name. That's their responsibility. The only difference between the subsidized and unsubsidized is the interest. So with the federal loans, like I had mentioned already, the Stafford loan, as long as you fill out the FAFSA, freshmen get that $5,500 the first year, $6,500 the second year, and then I believe $7,500 the junior and senior year. So to me, that total of about $27,000 is a pretty typical normal amount of debt for a student to carry straight out of college. They get their first job, they can afford that bill. Anything more than that, and I get nervous. Like, how are these kids going to pay these bills after they graduate? So subsidized, government pays interest through college. Unsubsidized, it's deferred until graduation, but you will pay interest on that. And then the Perkins loans, those are for low-income students, low income rates, low fixed interest rates. You won't see that on every award, but you should see, if you fill out the FAFSA, you should see the Stafford. I'm kind of like talking fast probably. Okay, Parent Plus loan is where I feel like a lot of people can get into trouble. Parent Plus loans are great for middle to high income families. And the reason why is because your bill, they will literally give you money for the total cost of attendance minus any aid you get. So if you have a difference of $40,000, they'll give you a $40,000 loan freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And at the end of that, you're paying, $1,000 a month, like monthly. That's just, I feel like that's a little crazy. So make sure that you're understanding the terms and the fees that come along with these loans, and it'll be different depending on who you go with. But for Parent Plus loans, that information is all available online. And if this is a route that you're considering taking, I would recommend that you go to NerdWallet. I put that right down there, and use their Parent Plus loan calculator. So if you have that free money every month, like maybe you're doing well, but you just didn't have time to save up money, maybe that would work for you. But it's not this quick fix just because you can get the money that you should take that money. If you do get turned down for a Parent Plus loan, there is an opportunity to get a cosigner. So just make sure you're reading the fine print for any loans. So what I want to caution you with is in merit-based aid is that those stipulations that come along with it. So merit aid is kind of like for anything besides financial need. It can be for athletics, it can be for GPA, it can be because you have the world's best oboe player living at home and X college wants that kid bad. So they're going to give you the Chancellor Scholarship, and that's your free money. The trouble that I see is that freshman year can be a huge transition for these kids. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty big considering they've been home because of COVID. Typically, they're guaranteed for 4 years, but you need to usually be enrolled for 12 or more credits. And, the GPA stipulation, you have to maintain a 2.5 or a 2.8 or a 3.0. So make sure you and your student understand what those stipulations are, because if they go to school freshman year, they struggle a little academically that freshman year, getting used to campus and being on their own. And then all of a sudden they come out with a 2.8. They had to keep a 3.0 GPA. And then what was a $20,000 bill a year now becomes a $40,000 bill a year because they lost that 20 grand merit scholarship. So weigh those options. Factors to consider when comparing packages. Okay, so when it comes down to bottom line, consider the campus fit. Just because a school is less expensive or just because a school has a great name and is so much more expensive, like that doesn't mean that's going to be the best place for your student, right? So you want to make sure that they're doing their research, that the academic environment, the cultural environment, the social environment is really going to fit your son or daughter so that where they go is where they're going to stay for 4 years. I mean, granted, yeah, sometimes stuff happens, kids transfer, but the academic and personal fit is such a huge part of whether or not they're going to be successful while they're at school. Looking at the school graduation rate, the higher the graduation rate, the better that school is at supporting those kids, maybe handholding, providing services for like first gen. They make sure their kids don't fall through the cracks. You know, if you have an 80% graduation rate, those kids are getting the support they need to be successful in school. Now, it's not saying a school with a 40% graduation rate is necessarily bad. It's not. It's just independent kids that kind of have their stuff together. They know what they're doing. They'll probably be fine. But if you know that your son or daughter needs like you to wake them up for school every day, or they need constant reminders about homework, you know, the high graduation rate to me is a signal that that school does everything they can to support those kids through to graduation. And then family budget. Like I mentioned earlier, like do not cash in your 401k to put your kid through school. Okay. There are affordable options out there. Managing family expectations is important. You don't want to have the conversation, you know, on April 28th when deposits are due May 1st about how this is all going to work. You know, what is your son or daughter responsible for as far as their college expenses? Are you going to pay a certain amount and then they have to pay the rest? Are you expecting that they work all summer so that they have money to pay for their books? You know, are you going to give them a budget while they're in school? Like, hey, I'll send you $20 a week or whatever. It'll be easier on all of you if you kind of work out those details before you have to put the money down to say, okay, this is where we're going. A note about 529s. If you have a 529, and this is like the only real financial piece of it that I'll talk about, and it's in your name, that's fine. It counts as your asset. If grandma or auntie has a 529 for your son or daughter, you, unless it can fund all 4 years, try to use that like junior or senior year, because for the following year's financial aid, it's actually going to count as income against your son or daughter. So that's going to kind of mess up the whole financial aid system that you got going on. Okay, so we're going to go into some examples of award letters and how to calculate your bottom line. So again, it's going to be the total direct cost to you, you know, tuition, fees, room and board, and then minus your gift aid. So no loans, just grants and scholarships. That's your bottom line. That's the number that we have to try to figure out how we're going to meet. So first look at this one, and it's kind of impressive. Look, balance after financial aid, $0. This is fantastic. Every parent's dream. But let's look at this a little bit more closely. In the blue here, we have their direct billable costs. So this is how much they actually are going to be billed on their bill. Billed on their bill, you know what I mean? So tuition, room and board. So that is $57,668. And then you look at their grants and scholarships right up here, right? Academic scholarship, school award, campus room award, state grant, outside grant. So grant, scholarship, those are words we like. And their total is $32,976. Okay, so direct minus free money. So they have an out-of-pocket balance of almost $25,000, where at first glance it looks like they don't, you know, they're not going to know anything and they're getting a free ride. So $25,000. What are we going to do about that? So this family decides, you know, we're okay with federal loans. You know, 27 grand over 4 years isn't so bad. So that brings their bill down to $19,192. So looking at this, that's what this family needs to plan for. Now, this school automatically included that federal plus loan, that parent plus loan that I had talked about earlier, for $19,000. And maybe they have that monthly money and that's how they're going to flow, and that's fine. But just be aware, just because it says balance zero, they're really crafty with these things. We've seen some horrible award letters go out. So just always look for the trickery, you know, like the loans that are snuck in there to look like this is going to be a fantastic deal. Because really you have to budget for 20 grand when they make it look like you're good. All right, so this is one from Wheaton College. It's a few years old. So when you're looking at this one, they have their cost of education at almost $66,000. If we're looking at the aid here, Dean's Award, grants, loan, work study. So we're looking at $43,000 worth of free money. So the 65,868 minus 43,300, we're looking at 22,568 that still needs to be covered. Okay, so they can take that Stafford loan off if they want to accept that. But again, so that's a $20,000 bill, a little bit higher than that this family is looking to pay for the year. All right, so this is from Colorado School of the Mines. Again, billable amount, we're looking at tuition and fees and room and board. Books and supplies are going to vary, personal expenses will vary, transportation will vary. Loan fees, that kind of depends on you know, how the family decides to go. So this is the amount we're worried about here. So for Colorado School of the Mines, the total is $53,987. And now if we go down at their award money, okay, so they have a President's Undergraduate Scholarship, Mines Grant, Work Study, Loan. So we're really only taking off these two amounts here, which equal to $16,000. So this family is looking at a balance of $37,987 that they have to you know, meet that gap. Now the school is saying, hey, you can get this better, you know, the parent plus loan if you want. Again, personal choice, but it'll cost you more than that. So just make sure you're taking that stuff into account. All right, so I think this might be Caltech. I'm not really 100% sure, but I kind of like the way this one's laid out. We got the direct costs, indirect costs, scholarships and grants, self-help options, so how you can help yourself make some money for school. And then family resources, okay? This is how much the parents have to contribute. This is how much the student has to contribute. This is how much they're expecting the family to have for family resources. And, you know, demonstrated financial need is $65,515, so they're offering $65,515. But that's counting the work study. So in reality, the bill was for $71,744. Their aid, which is awesome, $64,165. So their balance, they're looking at funding $7,579 for you know, their son or daughter to go to this school for that year. Okay. I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay, so this is for UMass Dartmouth. This is a current one. So a lot of my local kids here in Massachusetts will apply to UMass Dartmouth because it's close. If they need to commute, they can. It's just a good local option. So for UMass Dartmouth, I just point out here, they included the loan, right? So total cost of attendance as of right now for UMass Dartmouth is $30,189, and that is for an on-campus student. And then their aid, this student really only got, again, state school, not much in merit aid, which is typical, but you'll see a lot more with private schools. Chancellor Scholarship, $5,000, and that's their only free money. So they're looking at a yearly balance of $25,189 with that offer of the federal student loan. You know, there's families I've contacted that didn't show up on the bill. So if I'm not seeing that, I'm saying, hey, call financial aid because I'm thinking they probably didn't get your FAFSA. So I like that UMass Dartmouth does have like their minimums on there. So they need to maintain a minimum of 12 credits. So that means they're full-time, and they have to keep a GPA of 3.0 in order to keep that extra $5,000 a year for the Chancellor Scholarship. Okay. So bill balance, $25,189. Federal loans, this family will be taking out federal loans. They're looking that they need to fund almost $20,000 a year for their son or daughter to attend UMass Amherst. Okay, I feel like I really blew through a lot of that. Financial aid appeal. So this has, I feel like, been more popular lately. If you approach a UMass Dartmouth or a state school, probably in any state, with the offer that you get from a private school, they're probably going to laugh at you. Like, you need to think about comparable schools. So it's not negotiating. It's really like reaching out to them, a letter, a phone call, or a phone call followed up with a letter, even if it's like attached via email, asking them to consider additional money. Like, Junior really wants to attend this school. We need $3,000 more to make it work. Can you consider increasing his award package by $3,000? It's important that you don't ask for money just because another school gave it to you. Like, there should be some kind of reason behind it. Things that the FAFSA just doesn't cover. Do you have medical expenses that weren't counted? Has there been a change in employment? Are there childcare costs that, were not explained in the FAFSA that make a difference to your family financial situation that would really warrant them saying, okay, yeah, let's make up that difference for you. We really want you to come here. So again, you can share equivalent school merit offers. Make sure the schools are equivalent. If you're one of my comprehensive clients, I'm happy to help you figure that out. And make sure it comes from the student. Parents, obviously, it's financial. You guys would be involved, but make sure the student is also involved in that process. And then be nice. Like, they don't owe you this. It's fantastic. If you get extra money, that's great. But they are tapped out right now, as most of us are, going through like financial aid and getting all the award letters out and everything like that. So being nice can kind of go a long way. Okay, so that was good. I was hoping for a half hour and I talked so fast, it kind of went through there. So at this point, if you guys want to unmute or if you want to turn your cameras, feel free to. If you don't want to, that's completely fine. In the chat, if anyone is a fado singer, I'm sure I can get you some good merit aid somewhere. It's just a hidden talent. Those financial letters come after students declare where they're going. No, so every school should be preparing financial aid award letters. I've seen more lately. Some it won't come probably until like March, April. But that's part of the decision, is your financial aid award. Do not make a decision before you get your financial aid award, unless you know that you can fully fund your kids' education, which is great. A lot, some people can, but yes. So with the Stafford loan, so some initial acceptance letters will have more information than others. Every part of the process that's frustrating is that every school does this differently. Some will just have like, oh, you got this scholarship. And then the kid's like, okay, am I only getting that one scholarship? And that might not be the case. So you really have to wait for the official award, financial aid award letter. If you have questions, definitely follow up with the financial aid offices. So they'd be the ones that can tell you for sure. But a lot of times they'll get their acceptance with the merit award, and then later they'll get their actual financial aid award. But sometimes that's in their portal, and sometimes they don't even realize they have a portal. So make sure we're checking that email. When schools have a transportation cost, is that a fee or an estimate? So transportation costs are total estimates. They're thinking like, oh, like getting around campus on, a lot of them have buses and they're free, like in on-campus transportation is usually included. But it's like getting back and forth to home, to a job. If your student's out of state and they have to fly, what is that going to cost you? So that's why those are indirect, and those really change for student to student. That's why I'm saying, like, definitely once you make a decision, figure that out. But that will not be on your bill at all. So as far as paying that gap of what you're going to owe the school every year, I wouldn't really worry about that. Any other questions? Come on, no? Let's see. Okay, so for alternates to the Parent Plus loan. So I feel like the Parent Plus loans have been the most competitive as far as rates. But what you're going to want to also pay attention to is origination fees. That's why I recommended that NerdWallet website, because they pretty much stay up to date with like their with the interest rate and how long it's going to take you and how long that Parent Plus loan over 10 years is actually going to cost you out of pocket. Excuse me. So I would say definitely check out Discover Citizens. I will find the website link, but there's a certain website that's out there that you can go to, and they will give you all these different options. And a few of my parents have had success with that in the past. So I'll find out what one that is, and I will share that with everybody who's in attendance. I'll send out an email after this later. What is a reasonable amount for a parent to take out for a parent loan? See, I paid for school myself, so I'm really like school of the hard knocks, like, oh, they'll figure it out. But I get that that's just not how it is now. That depends on your budget. Like figure out how much cash you have each month that you could put towards a loan. Do not cash out your retirement or 401k. Like don't dip into any of that stuff. So that really depends on you. And there are loan calculators out there that can help you kind of figure it out. But I would say the least amount possible. There are definitely schools out there, and it may not immediately be your family's number one choice, but that are affordable. Like I have every comprehensive client has to have a state school on their list. I like for them to have one that if it comes down to it, they can commute. I usually say, okay, if you don't get into any of these schools and you have to commute, are you just going to go to the local community college, or would you rather go to like local to me is like Bridgewater State or UMass Dartmouth? And sometimes they're like, oh no, I'll go for 2 years at BCC, our local community college, and then transfer, because this one school is my end game, and that's fine. So there's definitely other affordable options, especially with COVID and things being up in the air. I think they're a little more open to just being home for a couple of years and taking classes and working on their credits, knowing that that's a bill they'll be able to afford no problem. So I think I got off on a tangent, but I think the sweet spot amount for any family is really particular to your budget. So it really depends. If you have two like schools with acceptance to both and merit money has been the highest, do you negotiate with that two schools and there's a 10 when there is still a 10? You can. So the question is like, if you have two schools, one gave you more merit, can you negotiate? And I would say, yeah, as long as they're both private and they're both kind of in the same like tuition range, and in the same range as far as like academic standards, right? Like where is their GPA at? Where is their average test score at? Like what does their average student look like? And if your son or daughter is above average for them, that can usually work in your favor. So yeah, and if you have specific examples, I'm happy to talk offline with you about that for sure. You mentioned Master Arts needs a 3.0 to maintain merit. Are most colleges on a 4 or 5 system? Most schools are on a 4.0 system. So the 3.0, that's like your B, that's that's like a pretty average GPA. So, and a lot of schools also are 2.5 or 2.8. But it's usually 2.5 to 3, like you don't usually get much lower than that or higher than that. Do colleges offer merit money for transfers? That actually is a really great question. Sometimes, yes, depends on the school. Usually your financial aid package will be the best as a first year student than as a transfer student. So I'm not saying they won't get merit, they probably will. But overall, the offer as a first year student is usually much better than for transfer students. So that's kind of the only downside of just taking the 2 years at a community college. But if they do 2 years, get an awesome GPA and then transfer, that has something to do with it too. So keeping that GPA up is really important if you know you're going to transfer. I think I caught all the questions that are in there so far. Any other questions? No? Quiet. Okay. All right. Well, if anybody wants to jump on and ask and unmute, go for it. If not, I will hang out here for a few minutes in case somebody else has a question. I am available for meetings. Any of my comprehensive families, we do have a like comparing financial aid offices comparing financial aid offers document in your student's Google Drive folder that I've already started working on if they've let me know about acceptances and any awards that they've gotten. So we can meet as a family and kind of go over that. And if any other family has questions, just kind of let me know. And I have room for like 4 more juniors, and then sophomores, I have room for like 10 more kids. So if you have anybody that you know that could use some help, I'd appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Glad you could make it. I hope it was helpful. I'm glad you got something out of it. And I talk really fast too. So if you guys need to go over it again, just give me a call.